This is awesome. What a theater.
Well, thank you guys for. Thank you guys for being here. When I introduced the film, I was saying that I've actually been teaching this film for a while, and I tell my students that one of the things I admire is that it's not a horror film to me. It's a metaphor about what it's like to be a father and what it was like to be a parent.
All right, guys, that's it. Thanks. He nailed it.
I mean, John said that from the beginning. That's how we started. John said, "We'll tell the story. It's a great story."
Well, we were doing season 1 of Jack Ryan, and these guys were producers on that, and they said, we have this script. Would you ever think about starring in a horror movie? And I immediately said, absolutely not. I can't do horror. Back in 1992, I saw Nightmare on Elm Street, and I think I blacked out for a decade. So thank you so much. Find someone else. And they said, it's a really good idea. It's about a family that can't talk, and you have to figure out why. And I went, damn it, that's a really good one-liner. But when I read the spec, the idea was perfect, and there were elements there, but it wasn't the movie I saw in my head. It was this thing of, Emily had just had our second daughter. I was an innocent bystander. And I was holding a 3-week-old child while reading this idea of family, and it just laid itself out that if I can make this movie actually the metaphor for parenthood, then it would be one of the best experiences of my life, and it turned out to be exactly that. It's a love letter to my kids, which is psycho when you look at the poster, but but now that you've seen it, you know.
And Andrew, why did you pick John? Because you said you've been developing this script, and then you reached out to.
Well, we weren't developing it. We bought the script with Paramount Pictures. We were in very early stages of pre-production on Jack Ryan. So we were talking to John all the time about the show, and we were thinking ahead that we were loving everything going on with John. He had done 13 Hours with Michael, so we were very aware of him. We'd seen a lot of the scenes from that movie, and we already were thinking about his hiatus. Like, oh, maybe John would want to do a movie after season 1 wraps of Jack Ryan. So we sent him the script as an actor, just to see what he thought of the lead role. And then after he read the script and we got on a Skype together and we talked about it, that's when he had said to us, I definitely will play the dad, but I'd like to rewrite it and direct it. And then
what every producer wants to hear. Oh, yeah, sure.
But by the way,
absolutely.
We're on Skype, so you really have to sell it well. That you're like, oh, that's
They couldn't
awesome.
hit mute and go, what the hell?
That's right.
But
so then for an hour, we were on the phone on the Skype with him as he told us the movie he wanted to make. And what he did with that spec screenplay just in that 1 hour once it was over. And we can go through all the stuff I remember from that one call. But we hung up, and Brad and I looked at each other like, we now have to tell Paramount Pictures that John's going to star, write, and direct this movie. And that was the next job we had, and we did. And we called the head of the studio and said, we found our guy. And John's the only person who read the script besides us and Paramount. It never went to anyone else. And then we were just off to the races.
And Brad, what were the things that he said that convinced you that he could write, direct, and star in the film?
Well, the first thing was the family thing, because I think that we've made a lot of horror movies, and to be honest, not all of those movies have had a heart or a theme behind them. They've just been kids in basements and someone chasing them. So for us to find a piece of material that is so unique like this, and then when John started talking about the movie and saying that the movie has to work independent of the horror, the story has to hold up, and about a family surviving, and the way you feel about the family, that was something that really resonated with us. We thought that certainly elevated the material. Something else that John said was that it was a non-starter for him. We were going to hire a deaf actress. Or he wanted to work with a deaf actress and let that inform parts of the things that he was going to rewrite. And almost John didn't talk that much about the horror. It wasn't about that as much for him as it was just the story and the through line.
But he did say by the end of the call, like, he knew it had to be tense and scary, but we definitely focused on the family drama of the movie. And for us guys who have made so many genre films and probably leaning much more into the scares and the horror, it was really nice to hear that he was leaning into the other side. He knew it had to be there, but he was focused on the family drama of the movie.
You contrast John throughout the movie. There's two opposites, sound and silence, and then you equal that with love and fear. And there is this back and forth contrast with those two opposites. Can you tell us about
Yeah,
that?
that's amazing, by the way. I mean, one of my favorite dichotomies in the movie that I was really excited when I was writing it, and then certainly when we got Emily to play the part, was the idea of surviving versus thriving. I was always fascinated with the idea of human loss and how humans have a secret superpower inside them to have the strength to continue on. And how do people deal with it differently? And so the father is purely someone who is more fearful. His idea of life is, I will give up on all opportunity of joy just to allow the truth, which is I can put my kids to bed every night. That's all I care about. And the mother is about thriving. So it's surviving versus thriving. And she says, no matter how dark the days are, we cannot give up on hope. We have to homeschool our kids. We have to develop this sort of womb-like family barn, and our kids can't be survivalists. They have to be human beings. And certainly having a baby, that idea of hope and that light in the darkness is always there. So I think for me, it was those contrasts are all over the movie, because I think that's real life. These ideas of feeling pulled by much greater forces was always something I wanted to explore.
And then there's also this fight for communication throughout, which is really poignant in every scene with the family. Yes. That it's something that we struggle on an everyday.
Well, that's exactly right. And I think that one of my favorite parts of the movie, too, is the idea that this family, even if you could make sound, is a family that needs to talk more than any other family. With the loss of that child and the feelings of guilt and blame and shame and all these different things, they're the family of all families that need to talk and can't. And so way beyond even this world of silence, they are figuring out how to work out these dynamics, which, like you said, we're all going through. I think we all have relationships that we're working on or trying to be more open and more communicative. And the fact that this horrible circumstance is actually the thing that unlocks them and allows the daughter to realize that she's not worthless. She's actually the superhero of this story. And the father to realize all you have to do is say, I love you, instead of trying to figure out how to prove how much he loves to her. Just say it. Like, these things just kind of pop out, and I love that.
And Brad, the monster becomes almost like a background thing. It's I would call it the MacGuffin. It's like this movie's not about the monster. It's about this family dynamic. Right.
Well, that's what we responded to, when he initially pitched us, and that's what we felt would elevate this above typical horror fare. And so, and practically, the monster wasn't figured out until we were long down the road making the movie. Also, that was its own.
It was a funny thing. I know it sounds bizarre, but one of the reasons why I think I had the courage to do the movie was back when we were shooting The Office. I remember Greg Daniels said to me, who created the show, he said, your job is not to deliver these lines funny. Your job is to deliver these lines. And if people fall in love with your characters, then they'll laugh. And if people fall in love with your characters, then they'll cry when Pam and Jim go through this thing. And it sounds like a very simple bit of advice, but it actually stayed with me my entire career. So when I read this script, I thought of what Greg said, and I thought, I don't know how to do a scary movie, and I don't know how to scare people. What I do know is if I make you fall in love with this family, you will want nothing to happen to them, so therefore the scares go to another level. And that was my job, just focus on what you can do well, and hopefully the rest of it will come around because you care.